Okay, it's 6:25. This is video number 144, and I'm going to try to get in um, the last three problems of assignment number 58. I have quite a bit to say. And I'll start by saying that number 25 was copied wrong. It wasn't the way it was intended to be copied. I put it up the way the book had it, and I apologize for that, but I'll use it as a teaching moment, okay? I'm going to do it correctly, and then I'm going to do it the way that I gave it to you and show why it's not incorrect. It's just to show you'll get a different answer that they probably never ask you, okay? And that will give you a better idea of what the game is anyway. This is the last day of instruction, no matter which way we look at it. So let's take a look at number 24 in the book, and I fixed my eye on this, and like we did in the previous three, the top has to be factorable and the bottom has to be factorable. So I look at this, and even though nobody's coprime, 2 times negative 9 is negative 18. 18 minus 1 is positive 17. You have to be able to do that, and we won't focus on that. I know it might be irritating to some kids, but I rewrote this. And then, of course, you expected to see this. Okay, the kids who've gone through the course on polynomials are expected to see that. They've had plenty of practice doing it. So you know there's either an x minus 9 here or an x plus 9. Whichever one works, you could divide, but we'll just factor everything out, and we'll get 2x times x plus 9. So we see which one's going to factor out. And then I write x plus 9 again, because as you know, our factoring method tells us to do this. And there's the negative 1 that fills it out. Okay, so that's on the top. And then it's easy to get a little confused here, but I'll work it out in steps. Like I said, they imagine this is a more time-consuming, difficult problem. And then when you write everything out here, you get 2x minus 1 times x plus 9 divided by x minus 9 times x plus 9. Okay, so there's the cancel that you were expecting. Okay, get that in there. You're expecting that to happen. If it doesn't, we'll see what my mistake that got us involved in number 25. And there's the top, and there's the bottom. So this is the simplified answer with the restriction of x cannot equal positive 9. That's been explained to you. So that's the exclusion, the excluded value, and the restriction, of course, as we've said so many times, you do that which you do in your mind. Okay, so that's a straightaway problem, but it's got a difficulty level to it, I would say. All right, and now we turn our attention to number 25, where I made a transcription error. It happens. So this is the correct way to write it, but I'm going to turn it into the positive and reduce it anyway, so we turn it to a teaching moment. Notice that the signs and the coefficients are extremely important. So I changed the positive to the negative that I gave you on the homework. And now we see there's another little level of difficulty here because the exponent's 4. But come on. I think you guys have seen enough of this math. I can factor out 2d squared. You had a chance to work on it. And there's 2d squared. Careful here, right? Always work backwards. Minus 3d minus 2. So work backwards. Make sure you got this out. We're presuming this is factorable, and you can see already, many of you, that it is. And then on the bottom, be careful as well. You can only factor out the d. The other d and the minus 2 stay here. So you're starting to see they want a d minus 2 up here. And you'll see you're going to get it. When I rewrite this, 2 times negative 4 is negative 4, and negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3. So in any order, I rewrite this. Okay? And there's what I'm looking for, by the way. And so let's see, we factor out, let's see where we are here. Whoops. And it's easy to lose a step working as if it were just one thing, but they're really fractions. And so now I go down a little farther, just making sure we're good. And we get 2d times d minus 2, and we see that plus 1 times d minus 2. So there we are. We divide this by d, and there's d minus 2. Whoops, not x, d minus 2. And there we are at the bottom there. Let me clean that up just a little bit. There we go, d minus 2. Okay, so I'll turn my attention over here to the very corner and simplify it, and then I'll do the last one. I have 2d times, d times 2d plus 1, times d minus 2 divided by, divided by d times d minus 2, okay? And outside of this whole thing, of course, I have the 2d squared. So the d cancels, and you end up with 2d, the d minus 2, you end up with 2d times 2d plus 1, okay? 2d plus 1, and then that's divided by d, and which cancel, so there'd be no restrictions, and this would be the proper answer over there. Reduce that way, I'm checking, I have minus 1, but it was going to be plus 1, okay? So there you go, no restrictions, all numbers work, the 1 is on the bottom, and we did number 25. That'll work, I'd say. And now I said I'd circle back, and let's see what happens. And this will be instructive for some kids. After all, you're going to high school. These things are going to happen naturally. I erase all this. Okay? And what happens when it's plus? And the only thing that's really going to happen is that I won't be able to factor. And that just shows you how delicate signs are and coefficients are. So let's turn this to the plus and go right away without further ado, wasting time. And we got 2d squared times 2d squared minus 3d plus 4, okay? And plus 2, sorry. And then you see immediately that 2 times 2 is 4. There's no combination of 4. It's going to add up to -3. So that's one of the things you should have seen this year. And then we have the d times d minus 2, and you make sure that you see that. But this won't divide into this. If you divide this into this, you're going to get a remainder. This is not factorable. So that's a lot of the math. We cancel here, and the answer is 2d times 2d squared minus 3d plus 2 divided by d minus 2, where d cannot equal 2. And so there you go with the way I gave it to you, which was not what they intended. And you got this complicated rational expression, but it still has a common denominator, restriction, and all that stuff. And one more thing that I want to address when I'm doing this, a lot of kids say, well, why can't you cancel the d? No, the d has to be shared everywhere, particularly here. Common mistakes, common misconceptions. You got to be able to take the d out of everyone here. These terms here are coprime. These terms here are coprime. So this is the answer, okay? So that wasn't a total waste of time, but I hadn't intended that, okay? So now I erase number 25. We move on. We saw their intended answer. We showed what happens that can easily happen when you do these problems. Actually, if you get something like I just got, you might be suspicious, but if you did your math carefully, it's still going to be right. And so now we turn our attention to the last one. And I thought, what is this, number 26? And I didn't have room to write it before, so let me get it right up there. Okay, there's number 26. And let's get right at it. It's 11y squared plus 35y. And I thought it would be interesting to talk about this problem. Divided by y squared minus 16. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Our first instinct is to say, what's 11 times negative 36, and you add up to 35. But I'm sorry, my friends, that means a calculator has to come out. That doesn't seem to me to be too kind of like what the Regents likes to do. So we have to think about what we're doing here just a little bit. And I want you to take a look at it. And don't get me wrong, this has to be factorable, or otherwise I only have to factor this. So I'm not on the wrong foot with my strategy. The strategy is always the same. But this is the way I decided to do it. So I wouldn't have to kill myself. And above all, so I didn't have to pick up the calculator, because for me, I don't even know what 11 times 36 is. And goodness gracious, I don't know how to make it add up to 35 without a lot of work. So I'm thinking this. I rewrite the top. And I don't know how often they give this kind of problem here. Sorry, that's a y. Okay? And then minus 36. So I'm going to ignore that just for a second. But this I know. This I was trained to do. Okay? And what I have to do now is figure either y minus 4 or y plus 4 divides into the top expression. If it isn't, then this is the answer. So I'll choose one or the other, and I'll choose the plus 4 because the middle term is positive, but if that doesn't work, then I'll try the bottom one. So I hope you understand my strategy. I'm going to divide this into this, and if I get no remainder, then it's factored out, and the work is done without trying to figure out all this math that I put over here. So that was my strategy. So I'm going to move the camera over here a while, and I'll choose one of the two. One should not work, and the other one should work. So you see how we're using our knowledge? It's like factoring something where both numbers don't divide into the top. But let's not get too carried away here, and let's see how it works. I'm trying y plus 4. And if that doesn't work, I can just write out y minus 4 because it's got to be one or the other, or the problem makes no sense. So I'm dividing that into 11y, and I thought that would be very appropriate because, after all, this is what we were doing for so much time, and we're applying what we know. So one more time, I'm dividing this guy into this guy, and I'm kind of hoping I don't get a remainder. But if I do, I know the other guy's got to work. Otherwise, the problem doesn't make any sense. So there's 11y. I'll rush through that part. And there's positive 44y. Okay, so we're good. Subtract them. You get your famous 0. And this is, careful here, this is negative 9y. Careful here, otherwise your work is wasted. And now y goes into negative 9y, negative 9 times, and this times this is this, and this times this. So we breathe a sigh of relief. We've got the factor, which is right here. So that makes life so much easier. It's this times this equals this, without going through all that rumbling and stuff like that. So I presume that's what the Regents wanted you to do. So let me continue here. So the top is rewritten as 11y minus 9. And you see I did the hard part of the problem. Now the rest is just standard. Okay? And you kind of knew the y plus 4, if you're following me, was going to go away. And so it follows from that that the y minus 4 was not going to go away. So if I chose that one, I would have gotten the remainder. And there we go. The answer, which I'll put over here so we don't have to go down again, is 11y minus 9 divided by y minus 4. And the restriction, of course, is y can't equal 4. So that was that last problem. And those are the last ones in their book, which they figured takes the most time to do. So there we go. I did all 3 problems, including the error that I made and the right way to do it. And I hope it was instructional for you. And tomorrow I'll write you a letter and we'll talk about what we did this year.